You can't keep me cooped up in here, okay? I am a peacock. You gotta let me fly.
Well, we have a special guest. We're legally bound by blood. Hello, Adam.
Hello, Joel.
I'm glad you want to talk about Poppycock. Where nothing we talk about matters because we're not experts. And nothing we talk about is really important enough to, change someone's life. Unless we're like, if you drink bleach, you will get taller. And then we're like, I can reach the top shelf.
Or if you shine sun on yourself.
You'll get dark. Or red.
Or red.
So you were talking about the current Gears. You're further along in it. I was sort of turned off for it for a second because they introduced JD in the last one and he was cool. And then in this one, they just made him an enormous dick. And then they made him betray and he did some bad things. But I also think he had the Kylo Ren syndrome of living up to a family name and a dad who was clearly not emotionally available.
What, Marcus Phoenix?
I'm over here making tomatoes. What do you want? Go do some more weight training.
Right.
Because all the women look like normal women, but all the men look like they're the size of a small car.
The roids market on that.
It's like a world that Dave Bautista and Dwayne Johnson were pulled from.
There is a reason why Dave Bautista is a playable character.
I know, isn't this so fun? And because I can't tell if they swapped out Bautista's lines over Marcus Phoenix or if they sound enough alike that they just kept it. Because I'll play the game and he'll say something. I was like, I don't know which one of them that was.
Exactly. Well, there's a reason why Dave Bautista
skin.
wants to be
Marcus
in
Phoenix.
The Gears of War movie.
I originally thought, I was like, he'd be a great Dom, and I'm like, no, he'd be an amazing Marcus Phoenix.
He would.
Because after Blade Runner, after Guardians of the Galaxy and Blade Runner, I was like, no, this guy has insane range. And so, I'm not gonna lie though, when I saw that first trailer and he puts on the Gears armor, I'm like, yeah, Gears of War movie. It's like, I'm coming to Gears of War 5 as a character. I'm like, no!
They're like, we gotcha!
David! But, you've played the game. Gonna be honest, I'm a big fan of Raul Coley from iZombie, who plays Foz, who is the most likable, dislikable person.
They redeem him in the middle of the game, towards the end of it. I'm closer to the end, I think.
It's a big game.
It is.
It's a beautiful game too.
Oh my gosh, I love the new engine and art direction that they.
It felt like it was old and it felt like it was new at the same time. I don't know how they did that.
I mean, I think part of it obviously has to do with the new hardware. Because, I mean, if you go back and play the OG Gears...
It's all very brown.
Very, very brown, very dark. There's not a lot of...
But it was really fun.
Yeah. Well, that gameplay is top... Well, it redefined the cover.
Yeah, cover. It almost... I don't know if it...
I think there was a few
Yeah,
out
some
there,
people had tried it, but I think they definitely
but it was
set the standard. They set the standard, and then afterwards, everyone's like, these games can be successful. So we're going to make more.
Well, I mean, Mass Effect is a huge example of that.
Yeah, and their gameplay was not great initially. You played it for the dialogue and the freaky alien action, and that was about it.
Yeah.
Unless you played Andromeda, and then you played it because you hate yourself, which is me. I kept saying it was going to get better, and it never got better. And no matter what character you choose, no matter what you make your base character look like, your dad will always look like Scar from The Lion King turned into a human being.
I want Jeremy Irons to be in a Mass Effect game now. That'd be amazing.
They convinced him to be in some bad Warner Brothers movies, like the Justice League movie. So at this point, he's like, I'll do it. Although he was in Watchmen as well, which he was
Ozymandias,
pretty nice. Right? Yeah. He kind of redefined that character in my mind. I'm not gonna lie. He set the new standard I know he's a good actor, but he was a great actor in that. There's just... Again, HBO, when they make Westworld, when they made Watchmen, they know even a bad actor in that, if you're the weakest link, you're still going to be the strongest person in almost any other show.
Yeah. Now, is it a good sequel to Watchmen? Would you say the show?
I would say the show is a really good follow-up to the graphic novel, and it actually, in my opinion, sort of works within the Zack Snyder version. If you see the Zack Snyder version as like a dramatic retelling of what happened and like exaggerations of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because it keeps the ending from the graphic novel where the ending isn't framing
The
Dr.
giant
Manhattan. It's a
squid.
giant squid. And originally, the original author was like, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's going to just be ridiculous because comic books are weird. And he's weird. And
well,
he's like,
it is Alan Moore.
and he's like, I'm going to put it in this.
I'm Alan Moore. I hate comics, but
Yeah.
I made them.
Yeah, that's just, he's either fooling himself or he's wacky.
I think he's just one of those crazy artists that like,
He needs attention, but he doesn't
Yeah.
need to look like he wants the attention.
and he's become the cranky old grandpa that just, oh, comics were better back in my day.
Him and Frank Miller both, I think, were like, because I don't know about you, but I think like the Dark Knight Returns and stuff like that, I cannot stand the art style. And the story is okay, but
Yeah.
the art style they go with for it, it's like they want to make Superman look like he's a special needs superhero, and then they just insult the character.
Yeah, I don't like the art style that much in the Dark Knight Returns either.
The only thing I like is that Conan
Batman
O'Brien
Year
is in the animated movie of it as himself.
One. The animated movie is pretty good though.
It is. Although I know that it was just like a weird 80s thing, but having Robin, who's like just a little girl with huge Coke bottle glasses, that's not a mask. I know that Clark Kent got away with it, but those are very definitive glasses. Someone knocks those off with that prescription, she's not going to be any help.
No.
I don't care if she's in a bat tank or not.
Yeah. Now I will say the big difference between Frank Miller and Alan Moore is that Frank Miller still seems to have reverence for the comic
Yeah,
industry.
he actually likes what he's doing.
He's still working. I mean, he just had a comic Superman Year One come out.
Is that like the one where he like puts on almost like flight gear because when he's flying through the sky it's actually cold and like, or am I thinking of Earth One?
That's not Earth One.
Oh, is
that's
it the
a
one where he
different
like
thing.
joins the military?
Yeah,
and
it's the
stuff?
one where
I
he
never read
joins
that
them.
one. I remember seeing that. I was like, this is either going to be genius or it's going to be really dumb.
I watched
It got a little rambunctious. I think they were talking about Chris Evans' abs or something.
I'm sure. But yeah, so in Superman Year One, yeah, that's the one where he joins the Navy.
Okay.
And then he also falls in love with a fish woman, which is not the first time that's happened.
Really?
And then in the third one, he meets Lois Lane.
Okay, so he joins the Navy and falls in love with a fish woman.
Yeah.
Why does he join the Navy?
If I remember,
He just like swimming, or
no, if I remember correctly, I think part of it is that he's still trying to figure out what to do with his powers, and so he's like, "Well, I'll join the military and like help."
They have to draw your blood when you're processing into the military. Like, do they explain how they?
No, Frank Miller ignores that.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's see.
But but it is interesting because in that, he's very non-lethal.
Okay.
So it's really cool because like there's this one moment where his squad has to infiltrate a cargo freighter that's been taken over by like pirates.
Okay.
And so he zooms around the whole ship, disarms everyone, and then actually has to jump on a grenade to save one of his teammates, but doesn't get blown up, and everyone's like,
That must have been a dud.
Yeah. So but it's interesting, but yeah, that's the big difference between Frank Miller and...
I might have to check that out.
Yeah, I've heard it's actually not too bad, which is good considering recent Frank Miller has been kind of crazy.
Yeah, well,
Like with Dark Knight Strikes Again and Dark Knight 3 Master Race, although that one he didn't really work on that much.
wait, what was the vague premise of those two? Because I remember hearing about them, and then I heard with any comic book, you'll hear a wave of nerds praising it, and then a wave of nerds saying it's the worst thing ever.
The biggest note of Dark Knight Strikes Again is that you find out that Wonder Woman and Superman are a thing. And
Like in the animated... No.
Well, it was in the New
Injustice,
52.
New 52 and Injustice, and in
Yeah.
the animated series it was Batman.
But this
and
one's written by crazy Frank Miller where they have literal sky sex. And
that's-
cause thunder and lightning when they do it.
My biggest complaint is that's really insensitive because you're going to drip things onto people below you, and that's
Well, I
just
think it's
not
over
cool.
the ocean if I remember correctly.
That's a little bit
but,
better. Okay.
And then they have a daughter who...
Oh, that's nice.
But you find out that she's a complete jerk. She hates humanity and she does not understand why her dad... and
Doesn't
mother-
rule them and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then in Dark Knights 3, basically she takes the bottle city of Kandor and grows them to normal size, and you find out they do not like Earthlings either. So you basically
So she
have
leads like a rebellion.
Yeah,
So they're the master race
yeah.
of the name.
Yeah, and then
Kryptonians.
Batman becomes young again in that series because he dies and then gets thrown into a Lazarus pit and becomes.
Why didn't he
young
just do
again.
that right off the bat?
Oh,
I thought of the pun as I was saying it.
Oh, that's horrible.
But seriously, why didn't they just give him
Well,
a bat?
because that wasn't the original premise of the first Dark Knight Returns.
Touche.
Because they weren't trying to be gimmicky.
Can you imagine if they did an adaptation of that, but they just brought back George Clooney's? That was
my god!
it's like, oh no, Superman! I never leave the cave without my bat card.
Oh gosh! And then they do the CGI thing to make him look younger.
That'd be hilarious.
So you have young digital George Clooney.
I will say that with DC being in such disarray, the coolest thing they could do would be some type of ballsy move of either being like a reverse of the Rebirth New 52, where instead of being like the pre-reboot Superman shows up and takes the New 52 Superman's place, be like, hey, what happened to Superman after Justice League? Contract negotiations, but he disappeared and
He merged.
we don't know where he went. And this guy's like, well, I've been Superman and I've been here for like 2 years pretending like I wasn't. I'll just hide out here. Or they can even explain that the Crisis on Infinite Earths puts Brandon Routh Superman on that Earth after they remerge the timelines at the end of the crossovers and change things, and then be like, hey, he deserves to be here because after what the CW did to Brandon and his wife. So basically, right before their most recent season of the CW shows, or towards the tail end of the last one, they were like, Brandon Routh's contract was up, and him and Katie, who plays White Canary, and a couple other people who were sort of well known. But like when the Arrowverse started, Brandon was kind of the only really big name there because he'd been a superhero before, like a big superhero. And if you watch behind the scenes, this is a side note, behind the scenes training, his shoulders and chest were pretty great, but that suit and the placement of the S made him look like his chest was smaller than it was. Which is why when they put him in a suit that actually complemented his physique, and he, I think as you get older, you get like that old man muscle where it bulks a little bit differently.
Yeah.
He looked awesome.
He looked like comic book Superman.
Like, my only complaint was that he still had his sort of longer hippie hair that he always has, but I think they're like, this is, your final time as a superhero, so he's like, I'm not cutting my hair, I have my hair the way I want it to.
Yeah.
And they made it work. It looked great. And with the contact lenses, too, he straight up, so I just saw a deep fake yesterday. They deep faked, and they put Christopher Reeve's face on him in Crisis, and it looked and sounded like Christopher Reeves. Literally, the only difference was the fact that his nose and eyes were different. And once you fix that, the only real negligible difference, aside from obviously higher quality costuming, is that he's built bigger than Christopher Reeves was.
Right.
And that the suit, obviously, because suits shrink your muscles on screen, they pad it a little bit to sort of redefine where those muscles would naturally be anyway. Like Captain America, everyone has that in their suits, so... except for Man of Steel, they had no padding in Henry Cavill's Man of Steel suit.
Because Henry Cavill is just one tower.
He's a tank.
I
am convinced he can only get larger, and eventually he will have enough mass. We'll have to launch him into space.
Well, even in The Witcher, he's so big in that where it's like you don't even need a sword, dude. You can rip those
I thought he was
apart.
I thought he was big as Superman, and then he showed up and he got bigger as Superman, and then he looked pretty good. In the Justice League, but it wasn't. He's in a suit, so you never know how much is real.
Yeah,
and it
Mission Impossible.
But then, Mission Impossible comes out, and you're like, so he's just gonna keep getting bigger. He's just gonna keep getting wider and wider shoulders
as he just pounds.
Because if you look back
Tom
at The
Cruise.
Immortals, the movie The Immortals, he was like my size and shredded.
Yeah,
and he was a fat kid who then lost weight, got shredded, and then became a giant. I get that when you have a personal trainer and like your own medical staff, you can push your body to a limit far beyond what the average Joe can. There's a reason that the Hemsworths look like what, deprived Greek people would sculpt their gods to look like. It's like, this is what I wish I had. And, except for they sort of screwed them in the genital department of the carvings.
Well,
But I think maybe that was just to make themselves feel better.
Exactly.
You look like
they have to have some flaw.
But Chris Hemsworth, even when he's out of shape, he's in better shape than 98% of the people I've ever met in my life.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
But I think that with the mess that DC's in, they should turn to like a continuation of the Batman, like the Michael Keaton era, or they bring in Brandon Routh because they literally for his final season, they're like, because your contract would be so expensive to renew you are out. And his wife wasn't going to keep working on a show that her husband wasn't in. Yeah. So even though they both were very blatantly clear with the writers, with every interview they did, that they want to tell more stories about their characters. The writers were like, no, I don't want to do that. And so they were like, but as like a bone, we're going to throw you. You can be Superman one more time in a couple episodes. And the Crisis episodes were the last episodes he ever filmed. So his last days on set, he got to be Superman again. And his final scene was him flying away with a smile on his face with the fixed Kingdom Come symbol where it has yellow in it again because he has hope again.
Yeah.
And he's smiling into the camera like Christopher Reeves, and he flies off, and that's the last scene he shoots. And then he loses. And he did an interview not too long ago where he said that when his Superman career ended the first time and no one wanted to hire him for anything, he became horribly, horribly depressed and developed a video game addiction because it was his escapism from like his quote unquote failure of a life.
Yeah.
Even though he's a dad now with kids, a wonderful wife, and he's clearly rebuilt his like nerd street cred, I mean, I can imagine that would be pretty emotionally traumatized. And apparently he was on Michael Rosenbaum's podcast, the Inside of You podcast.
Yeah.
And he talked about how brutal it was and how horrible it was. And then when Stephen Amell was on there, he talked about filming the final season of Arrow, and he had a panic attack mid-episode, just recounting the stress of everything.
Wow.
I'm like, man, the CW kind of treats their cast members like garbage.
Yeah, but
Grant Gustin's sticking it out, but
I think he's not too long from
I feel like they could throw in a Wally, they could throw in like an Impulse. You can just have a Flash in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
And the show will continue, but
I do think a lot of people are attached to his Flash.
I mean, not to brag, but me and Grant Gustin have the exact same birthday, January 13th. Yeah, I think he beat me by either a year or two. So whenever they were on season 2 of The Flash, I was like, all right, this is the year I have to get on a major syndicated TV show, or else I'm behind him as far as progress.
So you're in this never-ending competition.
Yeah, so I'm basically going to become the reverse Flash, where I'm going to ruin my
It's
career.
always been me, Grant, always.
And he's like, I don't even know who you are. I'm the dollar store James Franco.
You're just going to show up on set one day, I'm replacing you.
I could be like the behind this, like in the suit body double for him, or if Andrew Garfield is still Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I have the same proportions as them. Unfortunately, I'm being typecast as nerdy white guys in red tights. There are worse things to be typecast as, but
there are.
No one's ever going to be like, hey, are you Thor? Like, I mean, I was moving boxes, so my back kind of hurts. But I genuinely think that if DC wanted to really go like, we're cool boys now, they would have to be like, hey, Batman is George Clooney again. They're like, what? Like,
well, they do have the Matt Reeves one with what's his name?
I'm worried it's going to be
Robert Pattinson.
So this is going to be a hot take that people are not going to agree with. I think it's going to be too edgy. He
Yeah,
has a
I'm
gun
a
for a bat
concerned.
symbol. The gun that killed his parents is the bat symbol.
That is from a comic.
Is it a dumb comic?
It was written
sounds
by
dumb.
Kevin Smith. It's from a story
I
that
like
was
Kevin
in.
Smith.
I think it was in Detective Comics 1000, because that had a bunch of different writers all do a little short story. And in that one, he does take the gun and they killed his parents, melt it down, and make the first bat symbol out of it.
Oh well, if he melted the metal to make it, that would make sense. But this looks like a gun.
Yeah, but at the
I like his
same
Batmobile
time,
though.
Yeah, the Batmobile looks cool. At the same time, though, I'm with you because Andy Serkis has said this is a darker Batman than we've seen before.
Which after the Nolan films, I don't want it to get darker.
Or not, or even just the Zack Snyder,
Zack
Batman
Snyder's
v Superman version,
like breaking people's necks and being like Martha,
and branding people, and
which is actually from the original Batman. Like black and white features, he had a thing of Knuckles, and he would touch, and because it's black and white, you can't tell if he's stamping them or if he's branding them. So believe it or not, branding criminals was in the original black and white, purple gloved Batman.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, it is a weird callback.
That
Only Zack Snyder would be like,
Zack
this is
Snyder.
from the comics, so I'll put it in. It's like, that's not what we want from the comics.
Zack Snyder, I think he only looks at the pictures. He doesn't actually read the words.
I think he had some really good ideas, and I really like the costume design, like the textures and like the set design, the Batmobile, like the Batman song, essentially, like "Beautiful Lie," I think it is from
Beautiful Lie, yeah.
One of my favorite Hans Zimmer songs ever. It's just
great.
That's if I've had a bad day and I'm driving home and I need to get it out of my system, I play that and I sort of I'll admit, I imagine I'm driving really quickly and shooting down criminals, but it's just like it's a relentless, like, angry sound, but it's also like it's got the piano to mellow you out.
Well, I think with Zack Snyder, he's a great visual storyteller, but when it comes to actually constructing and creating a narrative that flows linearly, he's not very good at that.
They should just give him a really
Goyer was not a good pairing with him on that respect.
They should give him, like, the darkest DC character there is and just let him have that. Like, someone who is pretty... Like, if you made a Constantine movie, I think, although, admittedly, Benicio del Toro, after Hellboy and Shape of Water, that guy knows how to do crazy visuals and monsters, so he'd be my go-to.
I don't know. I think the big thing with Zack Snyder, at least with those, I think...
He teaches a theology class in his movies, for one thing.
Theology, quote unquote.
My father. Oh boy.
Well,
Jolly Ranchers.
It's just, I feel like he almost wanted to do his own version of those characters, which is
it worked for. I think in a weird way it worked for Watchmen because they are really twisted, dark characters.
Yeah, that's the thing. But you can't do that for a mainstream character like Batman or especially Superman. That was my biggest bone with Batman v Superman.
J.J. Abrams apparently wants to make he wanted to make one a while back, and I
think he'd be pretty decent with that.
I genuinely, after rebooting both Star Wars and Star Trek in ways that doesn't crap on what came before, I think he's just matured as a filmmaker, where he realizes you should be allowed to see people while they act, and it shouldn't just be all lens flares. I think that he would be a great person to do that. The rumor is he either wants to do that or he wants to do Green Lantern. And I think
he'd be good for Green Lantern too.
I would love it. I'm gonna be honest. After watching the first Wonder Woman movie, I was like, they could just say that Steve Trevor got sucked up and became a Green Lantern, and I'd be fine with that.
I mean, there was a rumor for a while that he was going to play Al Jordan.
He could have. He's beautiful.
He could have, yeah.
I mean, they gave him a fanny pack in the new one, and he looks great with it. I hate him.
You know you've made it when you can pull off a fanny pack.
When they cast him in the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse,
they
were like, we need someone who sounds like a confident superhero. And the guys who wrote it and directed it, the 21 Jump Street guys, they were like, he even sounds attractive. Like, you just hear him. And they're like, we got Jake Johnson, and he kind of sounds like he's down on his luck. Just the way he talks.
Perfect for that.
Perfect. He's one of my favorite Spider-Men ever. I want to see him in more things, period. He was the funniest part of the Tom Cruise Mummy movie.
And he was good in Jurassic World.
I know. I was pissed they didn't bring him back. They better bring him back in this...
Dominion.
Yeah. I was almost like, are they making another one? I was like, yeah, no, they totally are. It's a cash cow.
You can win a contest, actually, and get eaten by a dinosaur.
That would be super cool. I'm not gonna lie.
You'd be like, hey, the guy that's getting chomped on by the T-Rex, that's me.
I could be like the babysitter that had an unnecessarily brutal death, where, like, the pterodactyl thing eats her, and then the thing eats her, and then the next thing eats her. It's like a Russian nesting doll of death. I was waiting for Qui-Gon to be like, there's always a bigger fish. Just like eating popcorn in the sands. I told her.
Nobody listens to me.
But yeah,
I don't know how Qui-Gon, but you were really off.
How did you hop from Gears of War to this?
I have no idea. I think I mentioned. I don't know. Actually, I think
we got to Batista in movies.
I think because you mentioned Watchmen, and then
Dave
I asked
Batista.
you about that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Dave Batista. Man, he should be in more
always
things.
comes back to Batista.
I still think. Yeah, I think Batista could play me in a movie.
You specifically? Or
yeah, me specifically.
Just from birth on, just every stage of your life.
There's that Snapchat filter where you can take another face from your photos and put it on your face.
Do a deep fake of your face on him.
Well, I had a picture of James Franco from something because it was like a meme or something, or maybe it was a Spider-Man thing because and I pressed that and my face didn't change, and that's when I realized I have like. Not young, hot James Franco era, but like modern, saggy-eyed, what is he doing with his life, James Franco?
So Spider-Man 3 James Franco.
I would say closer to The Interview James Franco.
Oh.
Or Into the World. Or World's End, or whatever that one was called. I get that in the Edgar Wright film name confused.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking
about.
But,
yeah, the one where Channing Tatum becomes like a sex slave.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So that's... Danny McBride, what is he doing with his life? But yeah, I found out that I'm
playing in alien movies.
I'm dollar store James Franco. So I technically him or Grant Gustin or Andrew Garfield would be a more apt fit for me. However, if I get to rewrite my life, I want it to be Dave Batista because people are like, oh yeah, I knew Joel is great, just like him. That is exactly like him. His back hurt. and he was a huge tattooed Mexican dude. That's the dream I want. But yeah,
one day
I got mad at Gears of War, and I sort of got turned off from it because they're just like, hey, here's a new character. He's sort of a watered down Marcus Phoenix, but you're gonna learn to like him. And then they're like, everyone hates him, and because he's friends with the bully of the group, you have to hate him. And as far as I got, it looked like Foz was the golden boy, and then JD came back, and he became the golden boy, and he knows that the cog will literally just replace its parts with the next golden boy. It'll break you, and when you get your injury, you're down in the crap list, and it's the next hero that gets to come up. And so he's disillusioned, but it's all he has. And also, I love the guy who plays him. I think he's awesome. They actually did a drunk live stream where it was him and another guy, and they were reciting every line from Star Wars The Phantom Menace. Every time they got it wrong, they had to take a shot.
That's
and
awesome.
One guy had the script to tell them if they were wrong. And at one point, he got so wasted, he went out, he threw up. He looked like he wasn't coming back. And then in the 9th inning, he returns for the final act for the Duel of the Fates.
Oh my god.
And it was just... And he's like, it's funny, once you throw up, you feel better. And there was boom, 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 boom.
That's impressive.
One dude even knew the Watto lines and the Huddanese and stuff.
Oh my gosh.
It's beautiful. It's art. It's genuinely art. And they raised money for Corona.
That's also sad though that's the movie of all the Star Wars to...
Well, they wanted to do Attack of the Clones, but they were like, if we start here, we can raise $30,000. And once we hit that amount, then we'll do Attack of the Clones, and then we'll do Episode 3. And I think their plan is just to do the prequels right now. Which I think that's all their livers can handle.
Yeah, we don't need them dying on alcohol poisoning.
So how'd they die? For their country.
For the country and for an amazing cause.
But yeah, so I got turned off from the Gears franchise just because the campaign was really fun. I loved getting to explore and do things in your own order, but I did not like that they basically were just like, no, we're going to crap all over this character. And basically, I think the character you play as is, in the new one, is a more interesting character.
Yeah.
But I kind of hate the way that Marcus is just like, you're like a daughter to me. And then JD's like, hey, Dad. He's like, get out of my face. You killed a Carmine. You can't do that. Even though we do it all the time.
Yeah. But we're not directly responsible for the death of a Carmine.
Which, that was honestly the saddest.
Yeah, as soon as she came on screen, I'm like, oh.
She was so cool. I was like, man.
I'm like, you're too cool. You're gonna die.
They're like stormtroopers you don't want to see die. Although, did you ever think about it? I know because Tamora Morrison is so rad, seeing a clone trooper die is sad, and you learn to love him in the Clone Wars cartoon series. But they are all clones with no family meant to die, whereas stormtroopers were fine to let them die, but they voluntarily join.
He's being a smart aleck.
If I name my son Alec, he will just think we are complimenting him when he gets called that. It's like, hey, smart Alec, Daco. I'm thinking if he sounds like that, he might not be smart Alec. Might be the only time he gets called smart Alec.
Or if you think Alec Guinness.
Oh no.
Hello there. Yeah.
Can you believe The Mandalorian, Ahsoka, which I'm kind of bummed because I want that to be the actual actress who's been voicing her.
Yeah.
But I know Rosario Dawson's been a fan cast for ages. But Tamora Morrison is back. Hayden Christensen might be back.
Really? I didn't hear about that.
Well, Hayden Christensen would be for the Kenobi series, which has Ewan McGregor back.
See, I don't want the Kenobi series.
You don't. I want a Mace Windu series.
That would be cool.
I want a Mace Windu series where he's like Seven Samurai, and he finally gets his mojo back, and then Boba Fett shows up and kills him for killing his dad. Because originally, George Lucas originally wanted Boba Fett to be part of the Purge of the Jedi, and that Mace Windu wouldn't have been one of the arresting people. He would have survived and been on the run, and Boba Fett would have jetpacked up and this is for my dad, and then shoot him, and then he realized he would be 8, and that didn't make a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah, see, for the thing, I don't want a Kenobi series because we've seen that character so much. We know his story, and there are canon comics that cover his time on Tatooine, which are actually... Those are actually pretty interesting stories.
I've only read the Legends stuff for him, so I have to catch up.
The new canon stuff is really good.
How can you make it interesting, though? Because he has to keep a low profile and he's stuck on a backwater planet.
They examine just that. They're like, imagine you're an ex-military guy who's spent pretty much his whole life dedicated to this one cause, and that cause is ripped away from you. What do you do? And
drink profusely.
There's literally one part where you just see him meditating in front of his little hut on Tatooine, and he literally just falls face down on the ground and goes, "Qui-Gon, you never taught me how to fade away." And he's like wrestling with the fact he's like, my purpose now is just to watch this kid. And it's cool because you see him and Uncle Owen interact, and Uncle Owen's basically like, "Get out of my life."
That's one of the
away.
other Joels. That's Joel Egerton.
Oh, that's right.
Uncle Owen.
Another Joel. But
So-
he's like, "Get away from my kid. You already killed one Skywalker. You're not gonna
Yeah, that's valid.
have kill another one for your stupid crusade." So you kind of get to see why Uncle Owen kind of covered up.
I didn't realize it as a kid, but I realize now the reason Uncle Owen kept not letting Luke join the academy for fighter pilots is because eventually his dad, who is Space Hitler, would be like, "Skywalker, bring him to me." And he'd be like, "Hey, I killed everyone, and now you're gonna join me." And he'd be
Yeah.
like, "Dad, okay, let's take over the universe."
Exactly, but so
It,
that's
it makes Uncle Owen a more like heroic character, not just some lazy
Mhm.
guy who wants like, "No, stick around. We gotta farm some moisture."
And it's nice, and it's really cool. So that's why I'm like, there's really not much to explore there, and it's even cooler because in those stories, Obi-Wan also takes on some of Jabba the Hutt's henchmen, because the henchmen are going around squeezing all the moisture farmers for water tax. It was even in the narration of the comic, it's Obi-Wan narrating. He's like, the rumors are that Jabba the Hutt was stealing the water to get to use for his baths, but he's like, "I've met Jabba the Hutt, and that Hutt has never taken a bath in his life."
It's like, I can't believe we helped save that guy's nephew or kid at one point.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, there's really no story I'm interested in seeing there, and especially because we've seen him fight Darth Maul in Rebels.
Yeah.
We've seen all the stuff he does on Tatooine.
We saw him go through the gauntlet of reasons to leave the Jedi Order and become a Sith and not do it.
Which makes those stories in the comics even more impactful, where he's like, I literally dedicated everything to this, and it's gone.
I've seen people say that they should make it where the quote-unquote nephew that looks just like Obi-Wan and his girlfriend, who isn't his girlfriend, it looks like a perfect in-between. Like, they should just make it canon that they did, and she never told him, and that they had a kid, because then you can continue on the story. And I'm like, I think it actually makes it more bittersweet to have that person who actually, across the board, always did the right thing. Because Anakin is the case of someone who did everything he shouldn't have, and
nobody wants that polar opposite.
Because Dave Filoni described the Duel of the Fates as a battle for the fate of Anakin, because Qui-Gon's like, this kid needs a father figure, and he loses that father figure, which leaves him susceptible to Palpatine being that father.
Yeah.
Because Obi-Wan is reluctant at first, and even though they become friends, he's a brother. He's never a father figure. And without a father, he's susceptible, and that's how the fate of the galaxy is changed. It was the Duel of the Fates. It was the fate of the child and the fate of the galaxy. And Qui-Gon
really cool.
If Qui-Gon had survived, it would have changed everything. And now I'm like, give us a Star Wars What If series. We're getting a Marvel one.
That'd be cool.
Bring back Liam Neeson, he's rumored to be coming back for Kenobi as well as a Force Ghost.
See, again,
a flashback.
I just don't see how you can fill 8 episodes in that, because it's like, you can't have him leaving Tatooine.
Yeah.
And there's only so much you can do that doesn't make the story so big that it's like, well, why did no one ever mention this before?
Yeah.
Because it's like, they haven't had that problem with Solo or Rogue One. Rogue One, everyone dies, and obviously whatever they do leads into Episode 4. Solo, the story is so small and inconsequential that it's not like, other than Han bragging about the Kessel Run, which
and seeing him get his ride and realizing that it was a nice ride and that he's actually like the real life equivalent. He's the Star Wars equivalent of the guy whose mom gave him a nice car, and then he just leaves like McDonald's garbage and like the dashboard, and it's like a different color now in the interior. And he's like, "Don't worry, I turboed it." And you're like, "Yeah, but you haven't like changed the oil in 3 years."
Yeah. So yeah, that's my thing. It's just I don't think there's a reason to do a Kenobi series. There's just not enough story there. If they were going to do something where they showed some Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan adventures, I'd be interested.
That'd be a
in
great
that.
animated series.
Yeah.
They should just continue Clone Wars set in between, before Episode 1 or in between 1 and 2.
Yeah, but it's like, I just don't see a story they can do.
Well, I think with that, my wife is going to kill me if I don't leave. Thank you for talking about Poppycock. You know, we were stuck between this and utter nonsense, but I just didn't like the mental image of an udder every day. It's a real story. Boy.
won't be seeing him again.